You're my daughter's blind date, and you show up in this beat-up pickup truck. You look like a broke guy with no ambition. Are you kidding me? You have no business being here. I'm the CEO of Attractive. Get out.
I was supposed to have a blind date, but suddenly got yelled at by her father and, for some reason, had my character insulted. I recall hearing about Attractive somewhere. However, after that, my dad, who showed up in the Cadillac, said, "In that case, cancel the contract worth $1 billion," and the would-be her father was utterly devastated. My name is Jason Smith. I was raised in a single-parent household from a young age. I was informed by my father when I was in elementary school. My mom passed away from an illness before I could remember her. My dad, trying to fill her shoes, raised me single-handedly and with all his might. He worked as an independent construction worker. Because of our single-parent household and my dad's blue-collar job, I was sometimes mocked by my classmates in school.
You don't have a mom and your dad's just a construction worker. Lame.
I wasn't told this every day, but I often felt the whispers and laughter behind my back. But I chose not to let it get to me too much. After all, my dad took pride in his work, and I knew that construction workers played a vital role in our society. When classmates would badmouth construction workers, little me would often run crying to my dad. Every time, he'd tell me, "Construction work is about building bridges between people. Always value your connections with others." He always spoke of his work with pride. My father truly believed in what he did. Yet, even as a young boy, I sensed that his business wasn't doing too well. I could somewhat feel that we were financially strained, but my dad's determination not to let his child experience hardships was palpable. I tried not to ask for too much, but when there was something I really wanted, he'd get it for me. He probably had to cut back on his own needs or work extra hours to do that. Anyway, my dad never let on how tough things might be for him. Having witnessed my father's resilience and love, I've always carried a strong sense of justice and the importance of treating people right. Once I started middle school, there was a girl in my class named Rachel Miller. She was the most beautiful girl in our grade, and she was also a gifted student. Everyone in our grade knew her. To me, she was out of reach, like a shining star on top of a mountain. Moreover, I heard she's the daughter of the CEO of Attractive Corp. I always felt like I shouldn't even be in her line of sight. One day, as I was leaving the school library to return to class, I spotted Miller, but one of those popular guys from our class stepped in front of me, blocking my view. I couldn't help but let out a sigh and look down. Since I sit in front of Wilson in class, it's hard to catch a glimpse of her during lessons. I had hoped to be able to get a little closer to her. Feeling disappointed, I tried to look at her again, but the guy in front of me, with a swift motion of his right hand, knocked her textbook out of her hands.
Oh no.
With her scream, her textbook, pencil case, and other things scattered on the floor.
Yes, finally got everything to drop.
The three guys in front gave each other enthusiastic high fives.
Has this been happening often?
I've never seen them doing that to any other girl. Could it be they're doing this just to Wilson?
What are you doing?
I said it to them in a calm voice. As the sane man, I felt shameful and voiced my feelings. I gathered the textbooks she had dropped while approaching her and handed them over. Since she was like the queen bee of the grade, she was likely often targeted for those mixed feelings. She looked pretty nonchalant about the whole thing.
Let's go.
Man, that's boring. Totally killed the mood.
The guys who were high-fiving just a moment ago looked down on me and left.
Thanks.
She muttered softly and hurriedly left the scene. I became a bit worried about her. For some reason, her words sounded as if she was on the verge of tears.
Well, that's it for today. Everyone be careful on your way home.
The teacher said, wrapping up the homeroom.
Bye, teach.
Students started leaving the classroom as they got ready to go home.
Did we have homework? Hey, did we have math homework today?
I asked the guy sitting next to me. He didn't answer and just stood up. As if nothing had happened, he left the classroom. I didn't miss the sight of the boys at the back who had been harassing Wilson earlier, looking at me with satisfied smirks. Even if no homework was assigned today, I might as well do some just to be safe. It's riskier if there was homework and I didn't do it. I decided to head home without overthinking it. The next day, unusually for me, I overslept and arrived at school just in the nick of time to avoid being late. To my surprise, everyone in the classroom was in their gym clothes.
Why'd?
I wasn't supposed to have gym class today, so I didn't bring my gym uniform.
Hey, Smith, why are you still in your school uniform?
As I entered the classroom, one of the guys who had been harassing Wilson yesterday called out to me with a condescending tone.
I thought we didn't have gym class today.
As if he had been waiting for that, he smirked.
We were informed in the class group chat yesterday. You should have checked.
Hearing that, I quickly took out my phone from my bag. There's nothing here mentioning any change to a physical education class. Looking up, I saw him returning to the popular crowd. Their numbers increased, all of them laughing at me. When I glanced at the others, they quickly averted their eyes.
I see. So, they're trying to isolate me from the class on their orders.
I had thought I'd been blending in quietly, not drawing any attention, but I guess it's okay. It's just like how things were back in elementary school. I'll try not to let it get to me. With PE being the first period and having arrived just in the nick of time, I didn't have a moment to borrow a gym uniform from another class. Thanks to that, the PE teacher scolded me and I had to skip the class.
I see. So, after Wilson, I'm the next one they're targeting. Well, if it means she's no longer getting bothered, then maybe it's all right.
I sat back in my seat, contemplating revenge. But then I remembered my father and dropped the idea. I'd like to think I have the same sense of justice as him, and I'd never stoop to their level. It's essential to cherish connections. I won't ever bow to people who carelessly break those bonds. I became resolute in my beliefs. It's been over a decade since my challenging school days. As the years went by, my desire to become like my father grew stronger. For that reason, I took over my father's construction work. While I hadn't been fortunate in the school environment, ever since taking over my dad's job, I'd been blessed with a supportive community.
So, that's the plan I was thinking of moving forward with. What do you think?
I'd love to help out. Right now, I'm in the middle of negotiations to secure a job for our next construction site. I'm currently in negotiations with a gentleman in his 50s named Thompson. He has been associated with us since my father was still actively working. When I told Thompson that I was taking over my father's business, he was genuinely happy for me. Despite my limited experience, he always took the time to mentor me. There were even times when he treated me like I was his own son. We can wrap up the work talk for now. He paused for a moment. I wondered what was up, but then Thompson changed his demeanor.
There's something I'd like you to consider.
Thompson has a solemn look on his face as he gazes at me. Is he entrusting me with some important matter? In a brief moment, I prepared myself to accept whatever came my way. What can I help you with? Please let me know anything you need. Anxiously, I tried to read Thompson's expression.
It's not about work at all. You know, you are almost 30 and quite the catch. How about a blind date?
Caught off guard by the unexpected proposal, I was at a loss for words. A blind date? I'd never had much luck with relationships before. Suddenly being suggested a blind date, I wasn't sure if it would work out. But honestly, with turning 30 just around the corner, I did want to settle down. Yet, given my circumstances, I had nearly given up on the idea.
Did I overstep?
Thompson, who had been so serious just moments ago, seemed to feel burdened seeing me unable to respond immediately. No, Thompson, it's not that. It's just that I've never had such an opportunity before. So I was caught off guard. If you think it's a good idea, please go ahead with it. It was an unexpected opportunity, so I gladly accepted. My father never mentioned it, but I bet he's hoping for me to start a family soon.
Oh, that's great. As for who you'll be meeting, I'd like it to be a surprise on the day.
In stark contrast to his earlier demeanor, Thompson seemed quite excited now. You're not giving me any info about her. I wanted to prepare myself mentally before meeting.
That's right. Knowing you, if I told you about her, you'd spend all your time thinking about her until the day of the meeting. Probably trying to put on a facade. I think she should see the genuine you.
What's he thinking? So, I won't know her name or even see her face until the day. Well, if Thompson vouches for her this much, maybe it's better she sees the real me. Maybe that'll work out better. Understood. Please continue with the blind date arrangements. I appreciate it. I mentioned to my dad that Thompson had brought up the idea of a blind date.
That sounds promising. Oh, it's this Saturday.
Even though he was excited about the blind date, he seemed concerned.
I'm sorry, Jason. I have a big business deal on Saturday morning. Might not make it on time, but remember, I'll definitely show up, even if I'm late.
My dad said so, looking a bit down. I understand that if it's a major deal, that should take precedence over my blind date. However, the actual meetup with her is before noon, so there's a part of me that really hopes he can make it on time. It's all right. If you can't be there right at the start, I'll handle things on my end. I'll explain the situation to the other party as well. The blind date was something decided on short notice anyway, so it can't be helped.
I'm sorry. Also, I'm planning to take the family car that day.
This made my father look even more apologetic. Don't worry about it. I'll just take the pickup truck. We have two vehicles at our place, the family car and a farming pickup truck. I can't possibly ask my dad to go to a big business deal in a pickup. While I thought we had settled the matter, my father's expression suggested he wasn't entirely convinced.
I'm sorry. Once I finish up the business deal, I'll head straight to where you are.
On the day of the blind date, my dad, who has a business meeting, is ready to head out before me. Parents who kept expressing concern about the earlier discussion while waiting for the blind date. I appreciate his concern, but since I've reassured him that I'm okay, I just wish he would head to his meeting with confidence. I get it, okay, just go and take care of that meeting already, will ya? Ignoring my dad's worries, I urged him to go on with the meeting. Until this point, I was unaware that showing up in a pickup for a blind date might not leave the best impression. After sending my dad off, I quickly started getting ready for my blind date. I arrived at the venue with time to spare.
I'm terribly sorry, sir. All our tables are reserved for today.
As I tried to enter the dining area in my pickup, a man at the entrance approached me. His words were polite, but his expression clearly looked down on me. Oh, that's all right. I have a reservation here at 12 under the name Jason Smith.
Smith? You're that guy.
Upon saying that, the man's anger quickly grew evident.
You're that Smith guy, showing up to a blind date venue in a beat-up truck. And at a glance, you look like a broke guy with no backbone. Are you kidding me? This isn't a place for the likes of you. Get out.
I couldn't understand why I was suddenly being berated and judged by this stranger, but I couldn't just stay silent. If I've offended you in any way, I apologize, but I never intended to upset you.
Shut up. I'm the CEO of Attractive Corp.
He interrupted me, raising his voice. Attractive Corp. Sounds familiar. I tried to recall where I had heard of it, but it didn't immediately come to mind.
To think I set up this blind date and you turn out to be such a broke guy. How can I face my daughter now?
The man muttered under his breath. Of course, I heard his words loud and clear. If I'm not mistaken, this man is going to be my father-in-law. That's something I'd really rather avoid, especially since this matchmaking offer was from the generous Thompson. I don't believe I can maintain a close relationship with this guy in the future. So I decided to decline. Well then, it seems this meeting isn't beneficial for either of us, so let's just pretend it never happened. Just then, with a familiar engine sound, a Cadillac pulled up right in front of us. The man stepping out of that car was my dad. Yes, the family car we were talking about was this Cadillac.
What's the holdup? Aren't you inside yet?
It seemed my dad had assumed I was already inside the dining venue. I explained to him what happened from the moment I tried to park over here.
I see.
I could tell my father was quietly angered.
If that's the case, Wilson, the $1 billion deal is off.
Dad spoke in a measured tone to this snide man. I had no idea what was going on.
Smith, why on earth would you? Don't tell me it's because I taught this poor man the reality of the world. With all due respect, Smith, this guy is...
The man continued to badmouth me. He never learns.
Wilson, the young man you're belittling is my one and only cherished son. He may not be involved in this deal, but I can't do business with someone who looks down on my son.
Son, Smith.
He seemed to ponder, Finally grasping the situation, I felt the same.
You seem to have finally understood. The growth in our business is thanks to my son. It's because of his venture into social media marketing and his strategies ensuring the company stays profitable that we've become incorporated. With his effort, our company has become one of the most sought-after construction firms. The success I enjoy today is undeniably thanks to my son. I believe you were aware of that when you considered entering a contract with us. I'm sure your company had plans to build a new large-scale commercial facility, and I'm truly sorry we couldn't assist with that.
My father, with a tone of regret, informed the man, no, Wilson, of the halted deal.
Shall we head out?
I nodded in response to my father's words, but just then, to my surprise, a potential match for a blind date appeared. Her face looked familiar.
What's going on?
She had an elegant demeanor and seemed quite intelligent. That's right, it was Rachel Wilson. I almost gasped as I recalled. The thought of possibly having a blind date with someone as unattainable as her was beyond comprehension. That's how I understood it.
I'm sorry, Wilson. Let's pretend this conversation never happened.
My father, once again with a composed demeanor. Afterwards, he went back to his Cadillac, but I just couldn't leave the scene.
Dad, what's all this about?
She asked him, trying to control her trembling shoulders and looking downcast.
Well, you see, I just didn't quite click with his dad.
The source of her information was unclear, but it seemed all her pent-up emotions erupted.
Why break off the chance? It's always like this. You never give me what I want. And anyone who doesn't obey you, you just get rid of them. Even Mom loved you, and yet you drove her away. I wanted to go with Mom, but no, I got left behind because of your selfish reasons. Did you want a son? If so, you could have had one elsewhere.
She began to cry more and more. Her father looked bewildered, perhaps hearing his daughter's true feelings for the first time.
Hey, Rachel, not here.
Here, you care more about your image than your daughter's feelings. And yet, you always say get married, but you look down on everyone you introduce me to. Do you even want me to get married? I've turned down proposals, but I finally found someone I want to marry. Just when I thought I could get married, this happens. Do I have to marry someone with a fancy title? Don't my feelings matter to you? I doubt there's anyone who'd meet your high standards.
Rachel seemed to have more to say, but sensing it was futile, she said, "Forget it," and stopped talking to her father. I felt guilty for eavesdropping on a family matter that had nothing to do with me. For a brief moment, she glanced at me. Without changing her expression, she walked up to me, left a piece of paper in my hand, and vanished into the crowd. That was the only time I got a good look at her face. Compared to her student days, she had matured into a beautiful woman. Rachel's father just stood there, frozen in place. I went back to my pickup truck and looked at the paper she had given me. Looking inside, there was contact information along with the words, "Call me." She probably had a feeling that this matchmaking arrangement wouldn't work out either. I contacted her that same day and arranged to meet up with Rachel later on. "Sorry, was it okay for you to be just with us?" Unlike last time, I met Rachel in casual clothes. She had also made a decent effort to dress up.
I'm fine. I'm sorry. I really embarrassed myself last time.
Seated in a private booth at a cafe, We took advantage of the privacy and spoke without fear of being overheard. I should apologize, too. Just sitting there and not doing anything. She looked at me, her eyes saying it wasn't a big deal.
I wasn't sure if I should talk to you about it, but since you know now, I'll tell you. What I said to my dad that time, it really hurt. Even in my school days, I was secretly referred to as the CEO's daughter in class. I was kept at a distance. My dad used to say it was pointless making friends in school. After all, I wouldn't associate with them in the future. So he told me not to make friends.
Listening to the continuation of her story made me feel even more sorry. Why is she telling me all this? We weren't particularly close during our school days. You might not have made many friends, but you were popular, weren't you? So, at those words from me, she gave a visibly irritated look. Maybe I hit a sore spot. Hesitatingly, I started to speak.
Just because I was the CEO's daughter didn't mean things came easy for me. In school plays, I was always cast in the leading role, and during school fairs, I was made to dress up as a maid. Growing up, wherever I went, people only noticed my title or how I looked. I really hated that.
Her face fell into a sad expression again. I never realized she faced such struggles during our school days. The fact she was always smiling was her trying to put on a brave face, I guess. I might be realizing it a bit too late, though.
My father, he'd always say, "You're the daughter of the CEO of Big Corp." He was a strict man. I often felt like I was living just to meet his expectations. There were times I felt like life didn't matter at all.
She seemed more open to sharing these feelings now. But I get where she's coming from. I really do. You don't have to put on such a brave face. It's been tough for you, hasn't it? Both during childhood and even now. I've had my fair share of behind-the-scenes comments, so I get how you feel. If you want to cry, just let it out, even in front of others. If you don't lighten that load even a little, some things become hard to get over later on. As I said this, tears she'd been desperately holding back came pouring out. Truth be told, I'm not really sure how to handle situations like this. You've held on so well. With those words, all I could do was gently pat her on the shoulder.
But, you know.
With a trembling voice, she continued.
Back in middle school, there were several times when some boys would knock my things over. At first, it was just flicking away my pencil case. But I guess that got boring for them, because it escalated. The first time they knocked everything out of my hands. That's the moment you saw.
That time. It's awkward to think our common connection is mostly just that. Makes it hard to find much else to talk about. Running out of topics sure can be awkward.
I've been harassed by them a few times and other people have seen it. But everyone just looked the other way, except for you. You confronted them for me and even picked up my textbooks. That meant the world to me. It was such a small gesture, but I fell for you right then and there.
What? Caught off guard by her unexpected words, I found myself leaning in closer to her face. With my hand resting on her shoulder, our faces ended up being uncomfortably close. Despite the palpable tension, I instinctively pulled back. Oh, I'm sorry. My hand, which had been on her shoulder, was now on the table in front of me.
No, ever since that moment, I've always had feelings for you, Smith.
Seeing her tearful yet smiling face, My heart involuntarily skipped a beat. I never could have imagined she'd been thinking of me all this time. If you can accept someone like me. Riding that momentum, I confessed my feelings to her. The arranged date might not have gone as planned, but we decided to start a relationship right there and then. Rachel had been distant from her father for a while, but it seems like he finally had an epiphany after seeing his daughter's true feelings, her tears, and taking some time to cool off. From then on, he began to listen to his daughter and started valuing his employees more, showing a change of heart that reached my father's ears, and as a result, the terminated deal took a turn for a reunion, leading to a transaction of $1 billion. Afterwards, we happily tied the knot and built a joyful family together. No matter one's title, I can't work with someone who doesn't value those around them. However, it's not easy for the individual to realize this. We aim to make them notice by speaking up and showing through our actions, striving for better collaboration,